So hey guys, today we're going to be talking about kaijus and their applications and usages. So kaijus, pretty strong fellas. So these guys are inherent summons and they can, they can be special summoned to your opponent's field, which has a lot of different applications. Like for example, zone repositioning and a few other little things like that. They also can out tires monsters because they attribute for cost and not effect. They're also inherent summons, so it's very hard to respond to. And there are, in general, no restrictions with kaijus, unlike with Lava Golem, which prevents you from normal summoning for the rest of the turn, although there's no restriction on the amount of times you can special summon Lava Golem, which makes Lava Golem arguably better in certain circumstances, but they're still pretty good cards just standalone anyways. And that would give the argument that, I guess, you can make the argument that Lava Golem is not as versatile as Sphere Mode. So with Sphere Mode, you only get one normal summon per turn, so we attribute 3 guys for Sphere Mode. But, you know, with Lava Golem, we attribute twice, and that'd be a thing you could do. So with the Kaijus, they're just very good going second tools in general that, for the most part, most decks can play. I wouldn't say all decks, because if you were playing, for example, a Cybers deck, uh, you wouldn't be able to necessarily use kaijus at all. So with kaijus, you special summon them, and this effect here to essentially Monster Reborn with Transcode Talker, this is not usable because it says specifically you cannot special summon monsters to turn you activate this effect except for Cyberus monsters, and I'll tell you right now there's no Cyberus Kaiju. So if you were to kaiju your opponent and then make Transcode Talker, you would end up just staring, or I guess you could Lava Golem as well because that's a fiend. About the same, really. You would stare at Transcode Talker for a while. Why is Transcode not yellow? And then you would read the effect, and then you would look at the kaiju you summoned, or Lava Golem, and then you would go, ah, and then you would hit the surrender button. That's about what ends up happening. And this kind of interaction is kind of brutal, I suppose. Similar to like if, I guess this ruling is a little bit relevant here. So if we were to maybe, I guess, if we had a zombie world that could turn all monsters into Cyberus monsters, that would allow us to actually play kaijus or Lava Golem in, I guess, Cyberus decks. So the thing about Zombie World and how the ruling works with like this type of effect on Transcode is when you special summon a monster to the field with Zombie World on the field, it doesn't go like special summon and then convert to zombie. It counts as a zombie on the special summon, if that makes sense. So this means specifically, well, I mean, there are a few more niche things about Zombie World, and also if there are 2 types of similar effects going on at the same time. But yeah, if you were to special summon any monster while Zombie World is on the field, it immediately counts as special summoning a zombie monster, preventing you from activating the effective Transcode Talker here, which is pretty brutal. And of course, it also prevents you from special summoning any monsters that require Cyberus material, because you have no Cyberus. They're all zombie monsters. So that's a fun little ruling for you guys. But focusing back on topic here, kaijus are pretty splashable because they don't require your normal summon in the same way that Lava Golem prevents you from normal summoning for that turn. Kaijus don't have any such restriction, so they're a lot more splashable. And their versatility, I guess, is kind of meh. But in terms of going first plays, we have the option of using them as small world bridges. So with the Mech Knight deck that I run sometimes, well, one of them anyways, kaijus are pretty solid options. So kaijus or Lava Golem, I suppose, but I prefer kaijus because normal summoning Kirsu is pretty huge. But yeah, if we go ahead and, for example, Gamma Seal Tribute over a well, actually it wouldn't be Gamma Seal necessarily, it would probably be actually Jizukuru that we run in that build. But either way, we can tribute over one of our opponent's monsters and line them up so we get 2 searches off of Blue Sky, just lining up the zones, really. So that is pretty nice if we're able to do that. And then aside from that, we also have the option of using them as small world bridges. So in which case, like Jizukiru here bridges between my Mekk-Knights, like my blue, my purple, and from Girsu, and also from each other. So if I, for example, have Mekk-Knight Yellow Star, I can go banish Yellow Star, banish Jizukiru, and then we can add Mekk-Knight Blue Sky. And it's just really well positioned here. And for Blackwing, we have like banish a Bestial or banish a Blackwing, then we can banish Radiant to add Simoon or Sudri. And I mean, they're not well positioned for this for every single deck. So, for example, with Yubel, the only Dark Kaiju you would have is Radiant, being a Dark Fiend, and all of your guys are also Dark Fiends, so they have too much in common, so you can't really do too much with these guys here. In terms of being a small world bridge, that's probably the best usage, I suppose. In terms of going first, there's not too much else for you to do. Except, I suppose, with Gamma in particular and a few other kaijus, I don't remember the exact ones. Like, what's this? Some targeted protection effect. Okay, sure, whatever. So the kaijus have some effects that require kaiju counters, which you usually don't see come up, but Gamma is a pretty nasty one when your opponent activates a card or effect, except for Gamma the Sea Turtle Kaiju. Quick effect. You can remove 2 Kaiju counters from anywhere on the field, negate the activation, and if you do, banish that card. So, in other words, not hard once per turn, Omni negate that vanishes. And this isn't even once per chain, which is pretty nasty. So, if, for example, I had, I don't know, let's say Saryuja, and then a Kyoto Waterfront, we have, let's assume, a max count on the Kyoto Waterfront, then we could just keep triggering Gamma over and over again on any somewhat key effects, and it becomes pretty brutal. It's kind of like, I guess it would be kind of like a Herald of Perfection or Herald of Ultimateness at home. It's not really as good, I would argue, but you know, it's still pretty brutal. And in terms of going second place, now we're into some more interesting stuff. So, one of the texts that I want to talk about, of course, is Fairy Tail Luna. So, with Fairy Tail Luna, you have this lovely effect. When this card is normal summoned, you can add 1 spellcaster monster with 1850 attack from your deck to your hand, and no once per turn, and it can search itself. Disgusting. So once per turn, quick effect, you can target 1 face-up monster your opponent controls. Your opponent can send 1 card with that monster's name from their deck or extra deck to the graveyard to negate this effect. Otherwise, return both this card and that monster to the hand. So this will reset itself and allow you to technically special summon or not special summon, add more spellcasters that meet this criteria. And with Kaijus, if your opponent is not running them, which Kaijus aren't run that often, we could do something like, for example, Gamma Tribute over Apollosa, normal summon Luna, return Gamma with Luna effect, and then Gamma over our opponent, but again, and our opponent will not get to attack with this next Gamma either, which is technically the same one I looped again, because then we'll be able to return it with Luna again the next turn. So, pretty good effect overall, I'd say. And of course, if you control 3 Luna, it gets pretty out of hand at some point, I suppose. And this specifically returns to the hand, which is kind of interesting for certain reasons, I suppose. But yeah. That's one way we can utilize these kaijus, and this is something we would not be able to do with Sphere Mode or Lava Golem because they would take up our normal summon, not allowing us to normal summon Luna, so this is something you can, for the most part, only do with kaijus. And then we also have, as well, the Adventure Package having 2 different ways that we can return kaijus. So we have Illegal Knight and Draco back. So we could very easily go, for example, activate Enchantress or something, grab right, activate right, place Faithful, activate the effect of, well, not, I mean, special summon either, well, any kaiju really, shouldn't matter too much. And then we contribute over our opponent's guy, return one Draco back, tribute again, grab a Legal Knight. Well, this would have happened before, right? A Legal Knight, discarding Draco back, or I think it might be a Send, but I don't recall. I think this sentence, right, doesn't discard. Uh, Send one card. Yep. So we can do that, and then we can grab a Legal Knight. A Legal Knight can then quick effect return a Kaiju later, and that'll be pretty solid because you just kind of keep looping these guys and tributing over your opponent's guys, I suppose. So yeah, that's another way we can kind of go about this. And then there's also, I guess, this one's kind of worth mentioning, I suppose. We have Akashic. So Akashic just requires 2 monsters with the same type. So this is splashable into surprisingly a lot of decks. It's just that the usage is just going to be a little bit awkward. If you'll ever need to make Akashic, that's also a little bit awkward as well. But for the most part, we contribute over one of our opponent's guys, bounce back the kaiju, use it again. That's something we can do in a lot of decks that meet this condition here. If you can summon something like that. So in Therion, that would be a little bit rough, having all like different types and attributes. But yeah, mostly different attributes, so that's rough. And you wouldn't be able to super easily Akashic here. But yeah, bouncing back kaijus, that's just something you can do with a variety of different cards. These are just the most notable ones that I can think of. For example, the Punk also has this effect with the Ukiyo Punk Amazing Dragon here, having the effect to just bounce cards your opponent controls. And we also have Therion as well. You have Therion Reaper Fume, which can only activate this effect during your opponent's turn, but you return one of your Therion cards in your spell and trap zones to the hand, and also one card your opponent controls. So in this case, it could be Gamma and who knows? Maybe it's like Lily Brea, and then you pitch that Lily Brea from hand with Regulus anyway, so it doesn't really hurt you in a bad way, and giving your opponent a monster in this case isn't that bad because you have like Therion Discoloseum, which can really utilize that kaiju well for a variety of different reasons. And kaijus, of course, since they're inherent summons, they don't need to activate. So this doesn't really deal with something like a Fossil Dyna, but it could deal with like Inspector Border, which is kind of cool. There are some cards that kaijus can deal with really well, more so than other cards. So it kind of depends, I suppose, on what your opponent's playing, if they're applicable or not. But kaijus in general, they might not be optimal to play, but in my opinion, they're in general for sure playable in most metas, except for like stun metas, which I would count like the flu meta, the Eldritch stun meta. All of those were kind of stun metas, but actually specifically against Eldritch, this actually has a potential. So if we were to tribute over an Eldritch, this would mess up our opponent's rivalry and Gozen, which were at 3 for whatever reason. Well, not much I can say about that except, yeah, that was true. So your opponent would be locked into like waters and also only be able to summon aqua monsters if they were playing Eldritch, and then you could just stall out and kind of have them like screwed by their own floodgates until they can get an Eldritch into hand, I guess. Well, actually, that depends how many of those floodgates they flip. I'm pretty sure you could kaiju despite like Tikaboo and, or not Tikaboo, rivalry, and Gozen, maybe even Tikaboo being on the field because the ruling thing might have been incorrect and the programming might have been wrong. Could have been like a bug or a oversight. I don't even remember. I haven't tested it recently, so I don't know if it's changed. But at some point, I remember having, uh, specifically, I had zombie worlds on the field, so everything I had was a zombie, and my opponent controlled no monsters. I also had rivalry flipped up in the draw phase, and then I just got like a kaiju tributing over one of my guys, which is freaky. And technically, I mean, I didn't have to send the Gummo Seal either because it became a zombie. So, yeah, that was just a bug that happened at some point. Don't really have the replay or anything at this point in time because it was a long time ago. But, yeah, game is a lot less buggy now. I haven't seen too many actual bugs, I think. But, yeah, there's some little rulings with kaijus, but for the most part, they're very powerful going second, and just will gain you a decent mileage. Depends on your exact list if they mesh well or not. For example, if you don't have a good way to out the kaiju, then you just gave your opponent a big guy that you might not be able to out for whatever reason, which would be, let's just say, unfortunate. But, uh, you know, they're just really big vanilla monsters essentially at the end of the day. If you give one of these kaijus to your opponents, that's about all they are, I would say. So, not that difficult to out in general. So, right now, they're actually, in my opinion, they wouldn't be that bad. So, if you were against Snake Eye as Zamino or whatever, like, they don't really block you out of the, your kaijus unless they were to do the Ghost Meat Girl with transaction rollback play. So if they do that, like there's not too much you can do about that. So that's kind of suffering. You just need like DD Crow in hand, maybe, but they might have a negate for DD Crow, so it's like moot point. But yeah, so, something like that. And then with the kaijus, we could tribute over like Desiree to out it because Desiree specifically will not be targetable because of the equipped Fiendsmith Link monster, giving it targeting protection for whatever reason. So this deals with that immediately, and the effect on Desiree when it gets sent to the graveyard allows your opponent to send a card, and if we just kaiju them, you will still control no card, so you don't really get hurt by that effect either. So that would be a decent way to out something like a Desiree or a Dragoon, in which case, you know, just immediately tribute over Dragoon, and you don't have to really deal with it. So yeah, that's also a viable reason. But I mean, Dragoon's not really being played that much, so running kaijus exclusively for Dragoon, I guess, isn't something you need to do. But I mean, yeah, there are still some neat things and ways to return kaijus and kind of recycle them, which is neat, I guess. So yeah, that's all I got for you guys today, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.